Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 27 of Coffee Time with Byron and Brett. I'm your host, Byron, alongside my co-host, Brett.
What's going on?
And we have former NFL player Mike Golic and former ESPN radio guy as well. How are you doing tonight? Thank you for taking your time to join us.
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Hanging in there, trying to stay safe, deal with this COVID stuff.
Nice hot day in Florida.
Another nice hot day in Florida. How's it over there?
All good. I'm in Indiana now by Notre Dame, so all good here. Nice day.
So, I wanna ask you first, if you don't mind, about your radio gig. What I know you were doing it a while there with your son. But was it ultimate your decision to leave, or did ESPN not want to bring you back?
Yeah, they just wanted to change the show. You know, they wanted to go a different direction, and which is their right to do. So they wanted to do that, and so that was that. I was there 23 years, great years, had a lot of fun there, and it was their decision to go another direction. So that's how it goes, and we all move on. We go our separate ways.
How was it doing a radio show with Wingo? How is he?
Oh, Trey's great. I've known Trey forever. We were doing studio work, NFL Live, since 2003 for a few years before I stopped doing that. And then, so we lived 5 minutes from each other as well. So we were neighbors. We knew each other. So it was very easy to transition over to him and my son for the last 3 years of the show.
Now, I saw your son was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was he going to, before he got into the radio, was he going to ultimately play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or how did that go about?
Well, he wasn't drafted by him. He was a free agent. After the draft, he signed with Pittsburgh. And he would have much rather had a long NFL career, but he got cut once by Pittsburgh and twice by the Saints. Mm-hmm. And so, after a few years, he realized, unfortunately for him, it wasn't going to happen. So, he got into the business and started doing some work in New York in early mornings there and getting some reps, and would be on actually before my show at 6. He would go 4 to 6. And then jump a little bit on our show. And then he started doing our show more and more. So it just kind of evolved to that.
And what was it like working with Greeny for all them years?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, 18 years. I think it went pretty well. I don't think any of us expected it to go as well as it did. We were both in our basically early 30s or so, in that area, mid-30s when that show started. And we weren't sure what direction it was going to go, because I actually started the morning radio with Tony Bruno in 98, and coming to the end of 98 for a year, and then he left, and Greeny and I went for almost 18 years, so it was a good run.
Is he just as crazy behind the scenes as he is on camera?
Greeny, I don't know if anybody could say he's crazy. Greeny is a very professional. He's extremely professional. He went journalism school at Northwestern, and that was his background, so he knows what he's doing, that's for sure.
So you and your brother played in the NFL. What was it like playing in the NFL? I don't remember if you guys played in the same time. I don't remember, but how was it being in the NFL with? Help me out here, Brett.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Okay, sorry, but. What was it like having a brother in the NFL, basically, with you being in the NFL as well?
No, we played at the same time. He's 6 years older than me, but we crossed. We were at the same time for a bit. Actually, in the same division when I was with the Oilers, he was with the Cleveland Browns. So played against each other twice a year, but we were both on defense, so we never hit one another. So he was older than me. He was through Notre Dame and into the pros before I was even in college. So. But it was a lot of fun, for both of us to be able to play in the NFL. We had another brother, Greg, who was a year older than me. We played together at Notre Dame. He didn't make it into the NFL, but Bob ended up playing, 13, 14 years. I played 9 years, so it was a lot of fun.
Now your transition to the radio. Did you like doing better that than playing football? And then
No, nothing beats football. No, listen, I played football as long as I could. I did it until nobody wanted me anymore, and like I said, it lasted 9 years. It was a lot of fun. But I'll always football was always the love, without question. Radio and TV was a lot of fun. I didn't know I was going to go into it right away. Mm-hmm. It just kind of the way it kind of happened, and it worked out pretty well, for a number of years. But no, I would take football any day.
Yeah, so you were round 10 draft pick 255 and 85. Did you know you were going to go that low in the draft, or did you want to go higher?
Well, I thought I was projected to go higher, but my senior year at Notre Dame, I hurt my shoulder in the first game of the season. But I still played the rest of the season, and I ended up getting my shoulder operated on at the end of the year. So I went to the combine, and I was injured, so I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. So the projection of being in the upper part of the draft went away, and so the 10th round happened, which isn't even around anymore since the draft is only 10 rounds. So yeah, I was picked 255 back in 1985.
Now, do you have a moment in your career that you remember most, like your first sack or your first INT?
My first tackle, actually, I was on IR my first year. I broke my ankle, so I didn't play. But the next year, when my first game, I believe it was the first or second. I think it was the first game. We played the Bears, and it was the end of Walter Payton's career. And I think my first tackle was against Walter Payton, which was pretty cool. Wow. You don't realize that at the time. It's a running back tackling, but so that was pretty cool. Other than that, moments here and there, a playoff win, 92 against the Saints. There are moments, 3 interceptions during my career. So moments here and there. Unfortunately, the goal there was to win the Super Bowl, and we never got close enough to do that. So that would have been the ultimate dream for sure.
What would you say you miss most about playing the game?
Well, the locker room for sure. I mean, just the camaraderie with your teammates. Working out together, train together, practice together, watch film together, play games together. I mean, you spend more time with them during the season a lot of times than your family. So you miss that camaraderie. You miss winning together. Unfortunately, at times losing together, but doing it all together as a team. So I miss that the most. Just kind of that locker room atmosphere.
Do you have a funny story from when you played either off the field or on the field?
It's a lot of years. Probably one training camp in Philadelphia. At the end of training camp, we had a big water gun fight against the offense against the defense. It was a pretty good one. We covered 3 floors of a dormitory at Westchester University, and unfortunately, one of the offensive players, a wide receiver, ran into the corner of the desk and hurt his thigh and had to miss a couple days of practice. So coach wasn't too happy about that one.
Oh boy, yeah, I don't blame him. So it says here you played out of 5 playoff games during your career. How far along did you play in those playoff games? Did you advance to the next round? Were they wild card? What were they?
4 times we lost in the first round. And then in 92, we played the Saints in the first round. It might have been the wild card round in New Orleans. And we beat them, and then we went to Dallas to play Dallas. And they beat us. Dallas went on to win the Super Bowl that year and the year after. But that's as far as I ever got. I only had 1 playoff win of all those 5 playoff, or 5 times, I think 5 or 4 times going to the playoffs, only had 1 playoff win.
Do you think in your mind you had a successful career only playing 115 so games?
Well, I mean, only is a relative term. Only gets you 9 years, and the average is 3 years. So I would say it went pretty. Yeah, I'd be pretty happy with it. Yeah.
I like that response. So you said you played defense. So who would you say did you like going up against quarterback wise?
Oh, I didn't like any quarterbacks, so I tried to hit them all. And unfortunately, I didn't have very many sacks in my career. So I never looked forward to anybody. You know, it's just, you know, while it's a game and it's a great game, it's my business as well. It's my job. So you prepare every week for that team. And it wasn't really the quarterback as much as the lineman I had to play against. You know, I can't just get to the quarterback. You got to be the lineman to get to the quarterback. So there's a lot of study on, obviously, formations, down and distance, what plays they like to run. You try and narrow it down to the group of plays you think they may run at that time. But it's really more study of game plan, study of down distance formations, plays they run, and then the offensive lineman you're going to play against.
Did you have any rituals pregame or anything leading up into the game?
The only one I did is I talked to my father, kind of one of the last people I talked to before the game. I'd call him before a game. I talked to him, obviously, in high school. We were I lived at home, so he was there all the time. And in college, you know, he was at just about all the games. If not, I talked to him on the phone and the pros before every game. I talked to him as well. So I wasn't a real ritualistic player. I didn't have to, you know, put a sock on a certain way or tape a hand a certain way. But I definitely talking to my dad, basically kind of the last person I talked to before each game.
Your brother also got in. I remember him. Unfortunately, I was too young to remember his playing career, but I noticed him throughout his little stint in Saved by the Bell the college years. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think to get into like a show or something just like he did, or just go into TV?
No. He wanted to be an actor. You know, he finished out with the Raiders when the Raiders were in LA, and that's something he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So he was out there trying to do that. Was fortunate enough to do that. Right when I retired, ESPN hired me to call college games. That's the first thing I did in '95, and then started doing what NFL Live is now. It used to be called NFL Tonight, and I did that. And I was doing local radio in Arizona, and then flying and doing college games for ESPN and ABC on the weekends. And then during the week, I would do some studio work in Bristol, Connecticut as well. So I went right to that. So no, there was never really. I never really had the opportunity. It would have been fun, maybe to try and do, but I wasn't trying to do that now.
What about coaching? If a team told you to ask you to coach, would you want to coach?
No, I had a chance right when I finished. One of my coaches, the late Bud Carson, who was one of the best D coordinators to ever be in the league. He was my D coordinator in the early '90s in Philly, and fantastic. And when I finished with the Dolphins, and he called me when I retired and asked me, I think he was in St. Louis with the Rams at that point. He called me and asked if I wanted to get into coaching. He said he would make me an assistant D-line coach, and he thought I could be a good coach, and wanted to know if I wanted to, get into it right away. And I said, Coach, I love you. I love what you do. I said, but when I get there in the morning as a player, you guys are already there. When I leave, you guys are still there. And if you Google any coach who has coached for a while, it will show on his Wikipedia page all the places they've coached. I mean, it's a life of travel. It's a life of moving and moving over and over and over and over again. And, I had 2 kids at that point. My wife was pregnant with our third, and I didn't, while I think I would have enjoyed coaching, I think I could have been pretty good at it. I did not like the nomadic lifestyle of coaches, so I decided not to do that.
Now, shout out to Dan Patrick Show. I want to know if this is true what he said about analysts, because he was there at ESPN. Did they want you on? This is what turns off a lot of former players from what he says, is they ask you a lot to do a lot, like appear on Sports Center, NFL Live. Is that what they expected you to do?
Oh yeah, you get in your contract. I mean, that's what the contract's for, and it depends on what you agree to. And when I was new, I had no leverage to say I'm only doing this. So it's this many appearances on NFL Tonight, this many appearances on Sports Center, this many games you're going to call, this many radio appearances. It was in your contract. And then it got to the point when Mike and Mike started doing really well, where we were focusing more on that show and started to travel that show. So all of a sudden, I wasn't doing the Sports Center hits as much. I wasn't doing NFL Live anymore at that point, so we could concentrate more on the radio and TV show and travel a little more. So sure, in the beginning, they try and get you to do a lot of stuff. And when you're starting out, you don't mind doing it because you want the exposure, on radio, on Sports Center, on NFL Live, calling games. That way, you kind of get your face out there a little more.
What fellow colleague, when you were there, did you like doing it with, on set with?
Oh, I liked them all. I mean, one of the shows, actually, while I was still playing, NFL or ESPN2 started, they had that show Sports Night. And I actually did that while I was still playing, and it was a lot of fun. The two anchors were Keith Olbermann and Susie Pulver, and the guy doing what I think they called it the Sports Smash Minute, I think was Stuart Scott. So I got to work with those guys before I even worked at ESPN. So that was really cool. And you work with so many different people there, and but that was kind of my start there, and it was before I even was hired by ESPN because, like I said, I was still playing, but to work with them, we were all, at such a young age, was very cool.
Now, you played with 3 different teams, as you said. Out of all the coaches that coached you, the 3 coaches that coached you, or how many you've been with, who would you say helped you the most as a player?
Well, I mean, Buddy Ryan was a defensive, even though he was a head coach, he was more of a defensive-minded coach, and I was a defensive player. So I would probably learn the most from him because he was a defensive coach. Jerry Glanville was my coach with the Houston Oilers. It was really his first time as a head coach. He was also a defensive coach, but Buddy was really known, the 85 Bears as a D coordinator, with Dick as a head coach. And when Buddy was a head coach, Jeff Fisher, another, defensive player, former D player, was the D coordinator, but it really was Buddy's defense. So I would say Buddy just because he was such a defensive guy, and that was my side of the ball.
Was there a fan base that you enjoyed playing against or hated?
Well, I mean, if you were playing for the Eagles, it was usually the Cowboys. So you always had great rivalry, really, with the Redskins or the Washington football team now, and the Giants, because the Giants you just drove right up the road, to go play them up the turnpike. But I would probably say it was the Cowboys. It was the most heated rivalry from a player standpoint and a fan standpoint.
Now, who was the quarterback for the Cowboys at the time? Was it Staubach or Aikman?
It was Troy Aikman. I'm not that old. It was Staubach before that. So yeah, it was Troy Aikman. Yeah.
Well, I know you would he have been one of the ones you would have wanted to get a sack against for sure?
Oh, I sacked him a couple of times actually. I actually got an interception off him as well. But I played against him a lot. I mean, I was with Philly for 6-7 years, and we played them twice a year. So I saw him a lot. Played them a lot. Against a lot of the same guys on the old line, against Emmitt Smith as well. So yeah, I was lucky enough to get a couple shots in on Troy.
Now, were you around when another I can't say Redskin, but Washington football great went down? Joe Theismann, another colleague you had at ESPN. Were you around when that happened?
No, again, you're just so young. You're so young. No, that was before me as well. He was more than a few years before me. So no, it was not. I forgot what year that happened. We crossed over the league for a very. I don't even think we did it all. If it was a very, very short time. But he was at Notre Dame in the early '70s. I was there in '81.
Yeah. Well. Notre Dame is a good school. I mean,
it's legendary.
It's legendary. I mean, you played for. Let's see, who was your coach when you played there?
It was Jerry Faust, and our years were not very good there in those years. Unfortunately, it was still a great place to go, but the years didn't go that great, unfortunately.
So I want to get into a little bit of today's game. Do you like now better how the league is defending their players, unlike when you played, or considering you played in that era where it was more physical, do you like that era better than this?
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, every era is different, to me, I don't buy into this group of players couldn't play in our era because it was different. You hear that in basketball as well. This era couldn't play, and about LeBron. LeBron couldn't play in the era where they were knocking everybody down. That's ridiculous. If LeBron played in that era, he would have been born in that era, and that would have been the way he learned to play. He would have played that way. So comparing eras, I think, is a ridiculous thing to do. I loved our era of playing, but you learn things. When I was growing up and learning to drive, and before that, we never wore seatbelts. Nobody even thought about wearing a seatbelt. But we were smart enough to realize you should wear a friggin' seatbelt. So the way we were hitting in the NFL, while it was extremely hard and people loved to see it, it was extremely dangerous. Putting your head down and diving at people, you learn, that can cause some serious problems both during the game at that time and in the future as well. So we've learned that. You evolve over time to where the game, while some people say it's not the same, the hitting isn't the same, well, we've grown a little bit in the smarts department to say, you shouldn't drop your head. The helmet truly is a weapon, and you can't miss a lane. You're going to hurt yourself. We've seen people get paralyzed. We got to take the helmet hits out of the game. So it's gotten to be a smarter game as well.
Now, what about the pass interference ruling? What do you think on that as a defensive back?
Oh, I hate it. I mean, they did it for a reason, to protect the players, the defenseless receiver, when he's going for a ball. In my view, and I've said this a million times on my show over the years, I think they overcompensated for it by calling everything. Basically, and it's not the ref's fault. They were told, if it looks close, if it looks dangerous, throw the flag. And that's what they do. So, and they also, listen, they want it to be an offensive league. They want the high scoring. You look in college where defenders can defend all the way down the field, DBs, and in the pros, you got 5 yards. You can't touch a guy after 5 yards. And, sometimes the refs call a little more strict than other times. Those hard, intimidating hits over the middle, you really don't see them anymore. And some is for safety purposes, and I get it. Like I said, I understand that. But again, I think they overcompensated at times, and a lot of times if the refs see a big hit, they automatically throw a flag, when it could have been a great hit with the shoulder and the midsection and the chest. But if it's close and it looked like it caught the guy in the head, they're going to throw the flag. And then defensive players also understand if they get flagged for it and they catch any part of the head, they're going to get fined $37,000 or more. So, that part of it as well is taking a little bit of the hitting out of the DBs and for safety purposes. But I think it has gone a little far. Players will adapt. Tackling in the NFL still isn't the greatest in the world because, and I don't blame the players for it, it's because of the way they were raised to tackle from Little League on through. You were taught to hit, with your face mask in, stick it in their chest, use your helmet. And we don't want that in the game anymore. So really the next great tacklers or the next best tackling we'll see in the NFL is probably when this next crew of Little League and high school players who have learned more like heads-up football, which is being taught, at the Little League level, when they graduate and make it up to the NFL level, you'll start to see, tackling that's safer. And while some fans complain and say it's a softer league, well, they're not the ones out there, smashing heads and having issues down the road with it. So you're never going to make the game safe. The game will never be safe. It's inherently dangerous because it's people hitting each other all the time. But you can do things between equipment and technique to make it safer.
Now, do you think if Troy, unfortunately, didn't have all those concussions and retired early, do you think he'd still be playing at least maybe somewhat of today's game?
Troy playing today? Oh my God, no. He's been out of the league for years. No way he's still be playing today. No, that's way too far. But I'm sure, like Steve Young, concussions caused his career to shorten a little bit. And they're definitely, to your point though, more to the meaning of what you're trying to say is they are calling more on the quarterback, hitting the quarterback. So, because let's be honest, the league is the quarterback's the most important position out there, and the league wants them out there on the field, the star quarterbacks. And if they're concussed on the sideline or have a busted shoulder or broken collarbone and are not out there, that's not good for business, as they say. So they're going to protect the quarterbacks a little bit more. So if they had less concussions, could it have prolonged their career? It quite possibly could have, because we're certainly seeing players, especially quarterbacks, play a lot later now.
And what about with CTE cases? Do you like how the NFL is improving that as well?
Well, I mean, they got sued too by the players, so there's that side of it for hiding information. There's a reason they got sued and lost $900 million. I did not get involved in the lawsuit at all from the player side. I made my own decisions to go on the field if I got popped in the head or not. It was me who decided to go on the field. But I think just as a whole, we got smarter about it. Just like I said, in the medical fields, we get smarter over the years with things, and I think we got smarter with CTE, and we realized that while you're not going to get rid of all head collisions in the game, you start to teach, keeping the head out of the game a little bit and make sure the players. I think one of the big changes that has been good is the independent doctor, and the fact that, or even that they're noticing more that if anybody got stung in the head a little bit, they take them out and they put them through a battery of tests before they can come back on the field. And that's a smart thing to do, because for the most part, we never wanted to come off the field. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Even way before I was playing, up to when I was playing, if you got nicked and they asked you how many fingers you had up and they had up 2 and you said 3, it'd be close enough and you go back in. Now they take your helmet, which is the right thing to do. They take your helmet, and if it's bad enough, they take it into the locker room and they make sure you can go through a battery of tests that all players have a baseline testing on, and determine whether you can go back in the game. And while players would rather be on the field, sometimes players have to be protected from themselves. Their decisions to go on the field, others have to step in and say, you're not going back on the field. And I think we've gotten a lot smarter with head injuries.
Now, what we're seeing nowadays is quarterbacks being able to basically, what's the word I'm looking for, pick or more intake into what happens in the team because of Brady with the Bucks. Now you see Deshaun, you see Rodgers, you see Russell. What's your take on that? Do you feel quarterbacks should have a say?
I don't know if they're getting as much input as people think. They're not making personnel decisions. I mean, they're not making trades. Tom Brady is going to. You would be foolish if you're working with a Brady or a Breeze or a Aaron Rodgers to not get their input in on game plans. On what they want to do. Byron Leftwich is the OC in Tampa. He's going to work with Tom, and you're going to take what Tom does best, and you're going to implement that in the game plans. I think it gets blown out of proportion a little bit. That these players, they're talking about being consulted about who a team's going to take. At the end of the day, you're an employee, and they're the employer. Now, should you maybe is it cool to talk with your coach or the coach or GM talk with you about what the plan is? Well, yeah, I mean, you're the franchise player. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the franchise player for another decade with Kansas City. So would it be smart to have conversations with him about things? Yeah, but Andy Reid's been coaching a hell of a lot longer than Pat Mahomes has been playing, and Andy's a damn good coach. When you surround yourself with good management, these are the people that make decisions. So sometimes I think it gets blown out of proportion that these quarterbacks should actually be making decisions. Now, if you want to talk about it, if you want to have a discussion, that's fine. And maybe sometimes your input will be taken into consideration and other times it won't. So that's just the way it goes. So Aaron Rodgers, that whole situation, he has an issue with the GM though, and how they're running the show and the philosophy of what's going on. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is going to be with Green Bay Packers though. Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't either.
Where's he going to go and have a better shot to win the Super Bowl?
Right.
I mean, there's already the 2 Super Bowl contenders out there. They're set at quarterback. Right. They're not trading for Aaron Rodgers, so Aaron's going to be in Green Bay.
So, your era, you had mobile quarterbacks to this era now is basically the run like Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Deshaun type. Do you see that era of drop back quarterbacks not happening anymore in the NFL?
Yeah, it'll be a lot less for sure. I mean, you're seeing too much mobility, and it's starting all the way down in the high school levels, with these 7-on-7 tournaments around the country. You're getting mobile quarterbacks rolling out. You're getting coaches that are, putting the best athletes, at the quarterback position now where they can run and they can throw, and saying, okay, that's going to be a positive for us. We're going to use that. There was the day when there would be kind of a running quarterback or not a traditional drop back passer in college, and then they would get to the pros and they would try and beat it into their head. You're going to be a drop back passer now. But what's happened now, and rightfully so, take their talents that you see in college and magnify them in the NFL. If they're great passers, great. But if they can pass on the run, if you can implement the running game, I mean, anytime a quarterback has a plan to run, you have an extra man blocking. Now the running back can be a blocker, and that one free man on defense, or because you have an extra block. It's all about setting things up, running your quarterback, letting them know that the threat is there. All you have to do is freeze the defense for a split second, and now something's open over the top. So I think more and more you're seeing the more athletic quarterback, and even they're bigger. Josh Allen's a big guy. Man, he's an excellent runner. Trey Lance, who just got drafted by San Francisco, is a big guy with a gun for an arm. But he can run. So it's not just smaller guys like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. There's guys that can run and do damage running the ball. And you can, now, like Aaron Rodgers can scramble and run and be dangerous, but you're not calling running plays for him like you'll do for a Josh Allen, you'll do for a Trey Lance, you'll do for a Kyler Murray, you'll do for Lamar Jackson, those guys. So, yeah, that's here to stay. So the Ben Roethlisbergers and Tom Brady's, and those drop back guys that we have, they won't disappear. Trevor Lawrence, top pick. He's a drop back guy. He can move around somebody. He's basically a drop back guy. So they'll never be completely out of the game, because the bottom line is, even if you're a mobile quarterback, your bones are made throwing from the pocket. Your bones are made throwing timing routes, out routes, seam routes. That's how you're gonna be the most successful. So even the quarterbacks that run the most, they have to be able to throw from between the tackles to be successful in the NFL.
Now, I want to talk to you about the running back position. Why do we disvalue the running back position so much and not pay the running backs as much as we should?
Probably life expectancy. They take so many hits. That's why these guys will hold out and try and get that, because as a rookie, you're playing on a rookie contract. So their biggest contract is probably going to be that second contract. They just get hit, they're getting hit by multiple people. And now you're going to see the most effective or highly paid guys are guys that can catch the ball as well. Guys like a Christian McCaffrey, who can line up in the backfield, but he can split out, in the slot. He can line up wide if you want him as well. We missed Saquon Barkley last year because he was injured, but he's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. The best thing in the world you could do for a running back should want to do as he's coming up the ranks is catch the ball out of the backfield, because that's where your worth really increases. Like, listen, Derrick Henry is a load, and he is so much fun to watching him run the ball, but they're far and few between just like him that are just pure runners like that, like an Adrian Peterson was. You want a back that's going to catch 50, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 balls out of the backfield, as well as rush for over 1,000 yards. That's really the goal if you can get it.
Now, I get Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick out of Michigan, and I get all that, and I get he has a chip on his shoulder. But you won 7 titles. What's still with the chip on his shoulder to want to win more Super Bowls?
You got to find something to motivate you. I mean, whatever. A lot of motivation comes from within. And it's what you see in yourself or what you perceive from somebody. As great as those guys are, a lot of times, because they're so good, they have to find something that's going to make them have that chip on their shoulder and give them that reason to keep going. They love the game. That's obviously one of the reasons they keep playing. You can't put all that work in and do all the physicality it takes to play the game and not have some love for it. So Tom finds something. You have to find, well, what motivates you. Can you self-motivate yourself? Do you have to find an exterior thing that somebody said about you or thought about, or tweeted, whatever. Something where you can put that on your shoulder and say, okay, this is going to motivate me. I want to play till I'm 45. Everybody in the world says you can't play till you're 45. Well, that pisses you off enough to say I'm going to play till I'm 45. And oh, by the way, I'll win Super Bowls while I'm doing it. So, yeah, you can have all the accolades in the world, but, and some people with that, then they do lose their drive and they say, I'm good, I'm done. Others want to keep playing, want to keep going. I never liked those that would, like with Jerry Rice, when his time was up in San Francisco, everybody was saying, oh, just retire. Why the hell would the guy that wants to play, why should he retire?
Yeah.
Now his career may not end great, and others have done that as well, but as long as a man wants to go, man or woman in any sport, doesn't matter. As long as they want to put the time in and put the work in, you go do it as long as you want to do it.
I agree with you for a fact on that. So I want to take you to his counterpart where he left, Belichick. What do you think he has to do? Because he realized the mistake in what he in the draft before drafting 2 tight ends that aren't really nothing. So now he replaced the money this year with signing free agents. Where do you think that'll end up? Do you think he'll end up winning another Super Bowl?
I don't know that for a fact, but none of us know. But obviously, some of the free agent signings they had, they had because they had, drafting. The guys they drafted didn't work out. That happens. You have a grade on a guy, you bring him in, and it doesn't pan out. So they had to sign some free agents to make up for that. Nothing's damaging Bill Belichick's legacy. Bill Belichick is a Hall of Fame coach. Not even a question about it. But everybody says, was it Belichick or was it Brady? Who had, people. One other thing people need to understand is the Patriots lost players in free agency, and they had by far the most opt-outs last year. 8 players, and I think 6 of them were starters on defense. Right in that area there. So that team was decimated. Cam Newton was not what we thought he was going to be, and that's going to be the interesting story.
He was out a couple weeks.
How does Cam come back now? What do? They got Mac Jones, but you don't want to rely on a rookie. So we'll see what happens there. But most people are going to say, "Oh, see, it was Tom Brady all along." Listen, those two were great together. They worked great together. Maybe at the end they didn't. That way Tom wanted to have a little more fun and have things loosened up a little bit. Maybe that's one of the reasons he left. I don't know. Maybe we'll read in his book one day. Who knows on why he left. But they had a lot of success while they were together. They're both walking Hall of Fame player and coach.
Now here's a question for you. Here's a what if. If Tom Brady didn't get in the game after Drew Bledsoe got hurt and Drew Bledsoe wasn't hurt, do you think he would have still A, played for New England, or B, got cut?
Well, I don't think he would have got cut. I mean, he was the backup. Listen, hypotheticals are hard to answer. How much longer could Bledsoe have gone if he was healthy, before Tom got a shot to come in? It's too difficult to answer. We don't know. But that's what this game is. This game is about when does your opportunity come and how do you take advantage of it. That's why you have to always be ready, because you never know when you have to run on that field. So you damn well better be ready. So if you get the chance, sometimes the chance is only one series, and you have to flash in one series. Sometimes that chance is a half, sometimes that chance is a game, sometimes that chance is half a season because the guy's out for the entire time. But you never know when it's going to come if you're not a starter. That's sometimes the guys find their way onto the field. It's at the demise of somebody else. That's the way it works. Everybody knows it. Everybody understands it. And that's what happened for Tom. It happens all the time out there. This time with Tom Brady, it's obviously just one of the biggest names now to ever play the game, for a 6th-round draft pick. And really, even if he was the number 1 pick overall, still to have 7 titles and 10 Super Bowls is ridiculous. Who's matching that?
Right. What team do you think emerged as the favorite this offseason in both free agency and draft?
Well, I mean, I like. Listen, Kansas City to go back again. I mean, they're still the best team in the AFC with 4/5 of a new offensive line. Basically, it seems. I mean, that was really amazing. You know, you lose your 2 tackles, a guard as well, but you get Kyle Long out of retirement, and you bring free agents in for the other spots there. You did a good job signing your other players even before Mahomes, so they're still the favorite. And I think the next team has to be the Buffalo Bills, and they're ready to make that run. I think, to me, what's going to be interesting, the third best team very well may be the Cleveland Browns, which, I mean, first time in the playoffs and a playoff win in decades last year. So where do they go? They've built that team nicely. I don't know if I'm completely sold on Baker Mayfield yet. Really good rookie year, horrible second year, obviously a good third year. So let's see where this year goes, where consistent he goes. I think the Cardinals are building well around Kyler Murray, who still has to improve in the passing game. They have a good running attack because he's a hell of a runner as well. But I like what they've built. I'm interested to see where the Chargers go. Again, built their O-line a little bit. And Justin Herbert, I think, surprised some people last year with just how well he played when he got the chance. When, again, the opportunity, Tyrod Taylor, you know, his own doctor punctures his lung, giving him a shot to, you know, numb up his ribs. And all of a sudden, Herbert's on the field. And does a great job. And now he's not going to be off the field. So I'll be interested to see where he goes.
So, that's now you said that about the Browns. I got to ask you about Stefanski. Do you think they finally found their coach?
Well, I mean, for now, sure, it looks great now. I mean, they've been through so many quarterbacks and so many coaches. Again, we have a one-year sample. It's a good sample, by the way. It's really good. So, yeah, I mean, right now it all looks positive. But, you know, you have to get a little more of a sample size to see if you're going to have that consistency.
Where do you see the Steelers?
A lot of that is the O-line. Their O-line just, you know, between retirements, letting guys go free agency, that was just decimated. Their running game, I got Najee Harris. I think it was a great pickup. I love that guy. And Ben's coming in the end. I mean, he just is. You know, so what does he have left? And if he can't get it, what do they have behind him? So that's going to be a team. I don't know. Ben is kind of a drama guy at times where talks about retiring every year, or talks about this ailment or that ailment. So a lot of times you're not sure about where he's going to be. But, you know, when he's healthy and getting going, he's tough, no doubt about it. I like their receiving core, even though they had a decent amount of drops last year. That's going to have to get better. But that O-line is really the main concern there.
Now, do you see Deshaun Watson being on the NFL exempt list with all these accusations?
Well, right now I just saw the news that he wouldn't even be deposed in court until February of 22. So that's after the season. That's going to get really interesting. That's going to get interesting for Roger Goodell because he's not going to be on another team. He wanted to be off, and they were going to trade him. Nobody's trading for him now. No shot.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, does he play for the Texans or is he on the exempt list? And I don't know what's going to change between now and the end of the year, or when he's supposed to be deposed next February. I know some of the women who have accused him of this, they're being deposed through the year. So I don't know if that's going to change things. That's something I have no clue about, whether they could do it, or I mean, they could do it if they want to do it, but if they'll do it or not.
See, the reason why I asked that is because the same thing happened to Zeke a couple of years ago, but yet the NFL still suspended him. It's like, how are you going to suspend if he was found not guilty in the law of court? I don't understand.
I don't either. And listen, I don't either. You know, they have every case is different, no doubt about it, and they don't have to have you don't have to be convicted to be suspended by the NFL. They can still suspend you. So it's a wild, you know, and they come under a lot of criticism for it, and at times deservedly so, because at times the NFL hasn't handled things well. Other times they have, but they have, without question, have made mistakes when it has come to assault. You know, their players assaulting women. They have made mistakes on that. There's No doubt about it. They have made mistakes about that. So you would almost think they want to play it more to the safe side and get a guy off the field until you see what's going on. So that's why I'm not sure. Right now they have time. It's only OTAs, and then you got training camp, and then you got preseason. So there's plenty of time before the season starts, and I doubt he'll be at OTAs, Deshaun Watson. And I would say if they're going to do something like that, it wouldn't be till at least the preseason, if not the regular season, when they decide if they're going to do that or not. Right now it's the off season, so what's he on the exempt list of? OTAs?
Right.
So what? So, which he's not going to show up to anyway. So if they're going to do it, they probably, I would imagine, wait until we get closer to the season.
So even though the 49ers have, obviously, John Lynch has the GM, and the coach is obviously Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan's son, a lot of people are saying that the Shanahans make all the decisions instead of the actual GM. Are you buying that?
No, not at all. I think Kyle and John have a good working relationship, so no, I don't buy that at all. Nope.
I agree. You can't
Well, we here in Tampa like John Lynch, so.
Yeah.
So, Mike Shanahan hasn't been in the league for how long? I just can't see how he would have that much power.
No.
I can't see it.
I don't buy it at all. Not a bit.
But that actually leads me to a question that was brought up a lot earlier. Do you think John Lynch could have played in today's NFL?
Well, they have to change. Listen, a lot of guys, once they change the hitting rules, most of the guys that were in the league hit that way. So, John would have to adjust. Most players, it's been the toughest, I think, on the defensive backs because they've had to adjust the most with their angles and what they're able to do. And John would have been one of them, without question, with the way he hit. So, yeah. It would have been tough, but he would have, if he wanted to play in the league, he would have adjusted. And I'm sure he would have wanted to play in the league. So these are the rules. You may not like them. There are a lot of rules. Hell, I don't like driving 55. I'd rather drive 70. But you know what? They're the rules. So I stay a little closer to the 55 so I don't get a ticket because I'm breaking the rules. So, you have to follow the rules that they make for you. If you don't, then you pay the price. So you have to adjust to that.
Now, we only had a small sample size, one game. I didn't get to see it. I don't know if Brett did or you did. But what do you think Trey Lance will turn into? What do you know about him?
I have no idea. He's a guy that played 13 games at the FCS level. So, I like him. He's got a strong arm. He runs extremely well. But we said that about a lot of players coming to the NFL. They don't do anything. I do like him. I think he'll fit into that system extremely well with Kyle Shanahan. So, most of these guys, you look at what they do, and you see them go in the first round, you believe there's a lot of upside to it. You think there's going to be some success. Yet, time and time again, we see 50% of the first-round quarterbacks are good, and the others are busts. So you don't know.
Really
you don't know until, I don't care what happens in college and how good you are. Remember, now he's even FCS, like Carson Wentz was. And we all keep going back to when Carson Wentz was having that year where he was, going MVP level until they got hurt. And obviously he's been nowhere near that since, to the tune of being, gone now with the Colts. So we have to wait and see with Trey. The game is so much faster from college to pro, and I'm sure from FCS college to pro. So the game moves quicker. The decisions have to be quicker. The windows are smaller where he's going. The defenses can fool you more. So I don't know. Everything is set up for these first-round quarterbacks to be successful with the talent we see out of them, but we've never seen them in the hyper speed of the NFL and the decisions that they have to make. So we all think that they can do good, but we know by track record, not all 5 guys who went in the first round are going to be successful. That's just the way it is.
Now, why do you think every single year we don't know much about a lot of quarterbacks, but yet every year you see at least 3 or 4 taken high up in the draft that we don't know of?
Most important position of the game.
Why is that?
That's exactly right. It's the most important position, and it's the position teams will reach for the most to try and get that guy. Because if you don't have a quarterback, you're not going anywhere. It's a rare thing, where you have the 2000 Ravens, where you have Trent Dilfer as a quarterback, who's a good quarterback, but he's not an elite quarterback, but you had an elite defense. So those are far and few between. So you'll look at a guy and you'll sometimes magnify his abilities because you need a quarterback, and you'll reach more than you should for a quarterback. And sometimes it works. Sometimes you get bit in the ass for it.
But wouldn't you rather want to wait till they go through their rookie contract, though, to draft another one?
Waiting in the NFL is a swear word. You don't wait in the NFL. You wait, you lose your job. You can wait all you want, and then by the time you get that quarterback, there's a different coach and a different GM. So you've waited your ass right out of a job.
The reason why I say that is because every single year there's a quarterback that everybody don't know about that turns out to be good. You get, and that's why I'm saying, like, why not wait just the 5 years?
And I'm telling you, because if you wait, you won't have a job. You'll watch somebody else coach that guy. That's what I'm telling you. You don't wait, because then you're unemployed.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Okay. I mean, personally, being a Bucks fan, I'd rather have several down years, and of course I'm kind of used to losing, so several down years for a couple good ones. And like a championship.
Listen, a fan base, you get a Super Bowl or so, that buys you a lot of time. That buys you a sweet spot of time if you get to that Super Bowl and climb the heights. That buys you a little bit before they start saying, okay, we need another one. Without question. You'll take some down years for a couple up years, yeah.
Now, what's the deal with Julio Jones? Where do you think he's going?
Oh, man, I have no idea. I mean, he may not go anywhere. They may try. I don't know. I mean, cap number gets involved. Obviously, he'd want to go to a team, I'm sure, that's close to a Super Bowl. So he could try and get one. He certainly was close one year, being up 28-3 or whatever the hell it was, 25-3. My God! So I'm sure he'd like to go somewhere. But for Atlanta, if they're going to trade him, Atlanta's got to understand it's a business decision for them, and they got to try and get the best deal they can and get what they can in return for him.
Yeah, because that was weird. I'd never seen anything like that yet. What happened yesterday on Undisputed, where he just flat out. Shannon just ended up calling. I know you've heard. I know you heard this yesterday. What he did, he ended up calling Julio right on the phone, and Julio didn't even know he was on air that we know of.
Yeah,
it was weird. I mean,
never know.
But I'm also curious too. Where do you think the Dolphins will fit in? Do you think Tua is their longtime QB?
Oh, I have no idea yet. I mean, you can't tell. I mean, how many games did he play? I mean, there's not enough of a sample size. There's no way you can tell until, now he gets the offseason as the starter. Now he gets, and it looks like it's more of a normal offseason. You couldn't tell last year he wasn't the starter out of the gate. The offseason was a Zoom offseason like we're doing. Now it's more of a regular offseason, even though some players still aren't showing up as much, but it's more of a regular offseason than it was last year. So now we'll get a truer test. It's his team. Now, there's no mistaking it's his team. So now we have to wait and see. But way too early to tell what he's going to do.
So last two questions I have for you before we let you go. We got 7 minutes. First one is, you played defensive back. Is there any advice?
No, I didn't. I played defensive line.
Defensive line, sorry. Close enough. Yeah. Is there somewhat. Is there any advice you would want to give the people watching this? Any advice to the kids that are wanting to play that position?
Well, my advice, forget that position for any sports, is put the work in. I mean, it doesn't matter what sport or what position you play. If you want to do it, you have to understand you have to not put the work in. You got to put extra work in. I mean, when my kids had goals of playing football at Notre Dame and my daughter swimming at Notre Dame, I told them, because it's what me and my brothers went through. You don't just do the practice that you're at. You're going to do extra. You may not be able to go out with your friends as much as you want. You may be up earlier than you want. You got to put the work in. You got to put the time in with the drills. With the and today, proper eating, proper training. It's so much better than when I was growing up of what it's doing. You have to make a commitment. You can't half-ass success. So that would be the biggest thing to me. It's not position specific. It's you have to make a commitment that this is something you want to do. seek out those around you that can put you in the best position to help you succeed in that.
And I'm going to put you on the spot like I do all my other guests in any sport I have interview. I know it's early, and it's the season that hasn't started. Who do you see in the Super Bowl, and who do you see winning it?
Oh my God. It's tough to think Tampa doesn't have a great shot to get back there. New Orleans, Drew Brees is gone. I'm trying to think of, Aaron will stay in Green Bay, and they'll be good again, but I don't know if they'll be able to. Tampa's defense. Again, we keep talking about Brady. If it wasn't for Tampa's defense,
It really was the defense that did it in the playoffs.
That's what helped them beat Green Bay.
Yeah.
And then obviously slow down Mahomes. So it's tough for me, but there's always a surprise team or two every year. But in the NFC, I'm trying to think who could overtake them. Tough for me to think anybody can. So I'd say Tampa. And I don't know who's going to outdo Kansas City. You still got Mahomes. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. He had some injuries last year. A lot's going to be on how that old line gels because they got a new old line. Could we see, Super Bowl the same two teams in it?
Number 2.
But just to be different, I'll say the Bills. Maybe the Bills will squeak by and make it in this year and play Tampa Bay.
And last one, now that you brought that up, do you think teams now have what it takes to stop Mahomes after what they witnessed, what the Bucs defense do?
Oh, I mean, sure, you got to have the talent, though, to be able to do it. You can have the greatest scheme in the world, but you have to have the talent to execute it. And Tampa Bay did. Like I said, Tampa Bay wouldn't even have been in that position had that defense not won them against Green Bay. But think about what that Tampa Bay defense did. They beat walk-in Hall of Famers. Well, they beat 2 walk-in Hall of Famers and one guy who was projecting that way. Drew Brees in New Orleans, and then Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and then Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So, Brees and Aaron are walking into the Hall of Fame. Pat's got a way to go, but he's certainly projecting in a great way, but I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame just yet, even though he's playing like one. So that defense, to me, were the real stars of Tampa Bay. Tom deserves the headlines and deserves the credit, but even he understands how well that defense has been playing. So, again, you got to have the talent. They have the talent. And I don't know if there's a blueprint to stop Mahomes because he can do some crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But the bottom line is, from when football started to football today, it doesn't change. The best thing you can ever do is hit a quarterback. Knock him down, knock him down,
Right.
knock him down. Over and over again. Hit him as much as you can. Man, nobody likes to get hit.
That's true. But, all right, thank you, Mr. Golic. Much appreciated. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Feel free. I got your contact info now, so I'd like to have you down the line and how many times you'd like to come on. It was fun.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks. All right, see ya.
All right, bye.